What if I told you that in the next 20 minutes, I'm going to show you exactly how to turn a standard backyard into a calorie-producing machine that feeds your family every single day of the year, even in the dead of winter? I mean, walking into your backyard every single day of the year and harvest fresh food? Not just in summer, not just vegetables. I'm talking about complete meals, protein, carbohydrates, vegetables, fruit, every single day, January through December, never setting foot in a grocery store if you don't want to. Most people think year-round food production is impossible without a greenhouse or moving to the tropics. They're wrong. I'm going to show you the exact 365-day garden plan that feeds my family of 4 completely from our backyard. We haven't bought vegetables in 11 months. We've eliminated 70% of our grocery bill, and we're eating better food than we ever bought at stores. But here's the truth that nobody wants to tell you. 95% of gardeners fail at food independence because they plant the wrong things at the wrong times in the wrong combinations. They harvest for 6 weeks in summer and starve the other 10 months. I'm exposing the complete system, the exact crops, the precise planting schedule, the combinations that actually work. This is how you never buy food again. Let's go. Section number 1. Why traditional gardening keeps you dependent on stores. Before I reveal the 365-day plan, you need to understand why your current garden isn't feeding you year-round. And it comes down to 3 fatal mistakes that almost everyone makes. Mistake number 1, planting only summer vegetables. Tomatoes, peppers, cucumbers, squash. These crops produce for 8 to 12 weeks maximum, then they're done. You're left with nothing for 9 months of the year. This is recreational gardening, not food production. Mistake number 2, ignoring calorie crops. Most home gardens focus on low-calorie vegetables like lettuce and tomatoes. These are nutritious and delicious, but they don't keep you alive. You need calorie-dense crops: potatoes, sweet potatoes, winter squash, dried beans. These are the crops that actually replace grocery store staples. Most gardeners don't grow them because they take up space and time, but without them, you'll never achieve food independence. Mistake number 3, and this is the killer: no succession planting and no season extension. People plant everything in May, harvest in July and August, and that's it. The garden sits empty for 9 months. You're wasting 3/4 of your growing season. Real food production requires planting something new every single week from March through September, and it requires extending seasons with simple protection methods. Let me give you perspective on what food independence actually requires. The average person needs about 2,000 calories per day. Over a year, that's 730,000 calories. To produce that much food, you need approximately 2,000 to 4,000 square feet of intensive garden space, depending on your climate and crops. That's a garden roughly 40 by 50 to 60 by 70 feet. Not huge, but not tiny either. And you need to use that space efficiently every single day of the year. The 365-day survival garden plan I'm about to reveal is based on 4 core principles. Principle 1, grow calorie crops as your foundation, not just vegetables. Principle 2, plant in succession every week for continuous production. Principle 3, use all 4 seasons with appropriate crops for each. Principle 4. Preserve and store surplus during peak production for lean months. These 4 principles are non-negotiable for food independence. Now here's what makes this achievable. You don't need perfect conditions. You don't need a mild climate. I'm in Zone 6 with cold winters and hot summers, and this system works. The crops I'm about to show you are divided into 4 seasonal categories, and I'll give you exact planting dates and harvest windows for each. By the end of this section, you'll have the complete roadmap to never buying food again. Section number 2. Spring crops, March through May. Let's start with spring, the season that sets up your entire year. Spring is when you plant cold-hardy crops that mature quickly and provide food during the hungry gap between winter storage running out and summer production beginning. The spring garden has 2 critical functions: immediate food production and establishing perennials that will produce for years. The first crops going in the ground are planted as soon as soil can be worked, typically mid-March in my Zone 6. Peas are the spring protein crop. I plant snap peas and shelling peas, both climbing varieties, to save space. Plant them densely, about 2 inches apart along a trellis. Each 10-foot row produces about 8 to 10 pounds of peas over a 6-week harvest period. I plant 4 10-foot rows every 2 weeks from mid-March through mid-April, giving me continuous peas from late May through early July. Simultaneously with peas, I'm planting cold-hardy greens: spinach, arugula, lettuce, and kale. These germinate in cold soil and provide fresh greens within 4 to 6 weeks. I succession plant these every 2 weeks from March through May, ensuring continuous salad production. A 4 by 8 foot bed produces enough greens for daily salads for a family of 4 if succession planted correctly. Root crops go in next: carrots, beets, radishes, and turnips. Radishes mature in just 30 days, providing quick food. Carrots and beets take 60 to 70 days, but store well and provide substantial nutrition. I plant a 4-foot row of radishes every week from March through May. Carrots and beets get planted in 4-foot rows every 2 weeks. By staggering plantings, I'm harvesting roots continuously from late April through November. Now here's the spring crop that changes everything: potatoes. Potatoes are your first major calorie crop of the year. I plant 100 row feet of potatoes in mid to late March using seed potatoes. This sounds like a lot, but 100 row feet is just 4 25-foot rows or 5 20-foot rows. From this planting, I harvest 150 to 250 pounds of potatoes in July. This is enough potatoes to feed a family of 4 for 4 to 6 months if stored properly. The spring perennial establishment is critical for long-term food security. In April, I'm planting asparagus crowns, rhubarb, and perennial herbs like oregano, thyme, and chives. These crops take a year or 2 to establish, but then they produce indefinitely with minimal care. One 20-foot row of asparagus produces about 20 pounds of spears annually once established. Rhubarb produces 10 to 15 pounds per plant every spring. Onions and garlic are planted in spring or the previous fall, depending on variety. Onions from sets go in as soon as soil is workable in March. Garlic was planted the previous October and is growing throughout spring for summer harvest. I plant 50 row feet of onions and 50 row feet of garlic. This gives me 60 to 80 pounds of onions and 40 to 60 pounds of garlic that store through winter into the following spring. The spring fruit production comes from strawberries and early-season fruit trees. Strawberries planted the previous year are producing in May and June. 30 strawberry plants produce about 30 to 40 pounds of berries. Not a huge amount, but incredibly valuable fresh fruit in early season. Fruit trees, if you have space, begin producing in late spring with cherries and early apples. By the end of May, the spring garden is producing heavily. Daily harvests include greens, radishes, peas, asparagus, rhubarb, strawberries, and early herbs. The potatoes, onions, and garlic are growing vigorously for summer harvest. You haven't bought vegetables in 2 months. Section number 3. Summer crops, June through August. Summer is peak production season and the time to grow and preserve massive quantities of food. The summer garden serves 2 purposes: feeding you fresh all summer and producing surplus for preservation to carry you through winter. This is where calorie crops become essential. The summer planting begins in mid-May after last frost. Tomatoes are the backbone of summer production. I grow 40 tomato plants. Yes, 40. This sounds extreme until you realize that tomatoes are the base for pasta sauce, salsa, pizza sauce, and countless preserved meals. 40 plants producing 10 to 15 pounds each gives me 400 to 600 pounds of tomatoes. We eat fresh tomatoes daily and preserve about 400 pounds as sauce, salsa, and canned whole tomatoes. Peppers go in simultaneously with tomatoes. 20 pepper plants, a mix of sweet bells and hot varieties. Each plant produces 5 to 10 pounds over the season. We use them fresh, roast them, and freeze them, and make hot sauce. Peppers are flavor more than calories, but they're essential for food that actually tastes good.
Cucumbers and summer squash are planted in succession every 3 weeks from late May through mid-July. These crops produce heavily for 3 to 4 weeks, then decline. By succession planting, I maintain production from July through September. 6 cucumber plants at a time provide enough for fresh eating and making pickles. 4 zucchini plants at a time provide more squash than we can eat, so excess gets shredded and frozen for winter baking. The major calorie crop of summer is winter squash. I plant butternut, acorn, and spaghetti squash in late May. These take 90 to 120 days to mature, but they're absolutely critical for winter food security. I grow 20 winter squash plants of various types. Each plant produces 3 to 6 squash, averaging 3 to 5 pounds each. Total harvest, 200 to 300 pounds of winter squash that stores in a cool basement from September through March. This is carbohydrates that replace bread and pasta for half the year. Sweet potatoes are planted in early June using slips. Sweet potatoes are the highest calorie crop you can grow per square foot. I dedicate a 4 by 20 foot bed to sweet potatoes, about 80 square feet. From this space, I harvest 80 to 120 pounds of sweet potatoes in October. They cure and store beautifully, lasting from October through April in proper conditions. Beans are critical summer crops for both fresh eating and drying. I plant bush beans every 3 weeks from late May through mid-July for continuous fresh beans. Additionally, I plant pole beans specifically for dry beans. Varieties like Jacob's Cattle, Cannellini, and Black Turtle produce beans for drying and storage. 25 feet of densely planted pole beans yields about 15 to 20 pounds of dried beans. These are protein, carbohydrates, and they store for years. Corn is controversial in small space food production because it requires a lot of space for the calories produced. But corn provides psychological satisfaction, and fresh corn is incomparable.
I compromise by planting a small plot, about 10 by 10 feet, which gives us fresh corn for a few weeks without dedicating too much space. For serious calorie production, corn isn't efficient, but for enjoyment of food, it's worth it. The summer herb garden explodes with production. Basil, cilantro, dill, and parsley are producing heavily. I harvest basil continuously and make massive batches of pesto that freeze beautifully. One 4x4 bed of basil produces enough pesto for a year. Summer is also when you're harvesting all the spring plantings. Potatoes are dug in July, onions and garlic are cured in July and August. The spring-planted carrots and beets are ready. You're swimming in food, and this is when preservation becomes critical. Every evening in July and August, we're canning tomato sauce, making and freezing pesto, blanching and freezing beans, making pickles, and curing alliums. By the end of August, the pantry and freezer are full. We have preserved enough food to carry us through winter, and the fall garden is just beginning production. Hold on, before we go to fall and winter, I need to address the question everyone asks at this point. What about protein? Everything I've shown you so far is vegetables, fruits, and some beans. Where's the protein for complete food independence? The answer is going to surprise you because it's not what most people expect. The fall and winter sections include protein sources you've never considered growing. Number 6 in the fall section will shock you. It's a crop that produces more protein per square foot than anything else on this list. Stay with me. Section number 4, fall crops, September through November. Fall is the season most gardeners completely ignore, and it's the biggest mistake in food production. Fall crops often outproduce summer crops. They taste better because of cool weather, and they extend your harvest window by 3 to 4 months. The fall garden begins in mid-summer when most people think gardening is winding down. The first fall crops are planted in July. Broccoli, cauliflower, and cabbage transplants go in the garden in mid-July for fall harvest. These brassicas are planted as seedlings I start indoors in June. Each plant produces substantial food. Broccoli produces a main head plus side shoots for weeks. Cabbage heads weigh 3 to 8 pounds each. I plant 12 broccoli, 12 cauliflower, and 20 cabbages. Total production is about 150 pounds of cruciferous vegetables that harvest from September through November. Carrots planted in late July and early August specifically for fall harvest are sweeter and better textured than spring carrots because cold temperatures convert starches to sugars. I plant 50 row feet of carrots in late July. They're ready for harvest in October and November, and they can stay in the ground under mulch well into December, providing fresh root vegetables deep into winter. This planting yields about 40 to 60 pounds of carrots. Beets and turnips are planted simultaneously with the fall carrots. These roots are incredibly cold-hardy and productive. 25 feet of beets produces 30 to 40 pounds of roots, plus edible greens. The greens are a bonus crop, providing fresh greens after summer greens have bolted. The fall greens are planted in August for September through November harvest. Kale, spinach, lettuce, arugula, and Asian greens like bok choy and mizuna. I plant these densely in a 4 by 16 bed, succession planting every 2 weeks from early August through early September. This provides daily fresh salads and cooking greens from September through November, and with simple protection like row covers, production continues into December and January. Radishes planted in September mature in October and provide quick, fresh food. Fall radishes are milder and larger than spring radishes. Varieties like daikon and watermelon radish produce massive roots, perfect for fresh eating, pickling, or storing. Now here's the fall crop that provides serious protein: dried beans. The pole beans I planted in June are ready for harvest as dried beans in September and October. You let the pods dry completely on the vine, then shell out the beans and store them. As I mentioned earlier, 25 feet of pole beans yields 15 to 20 pounds of dried beans, but I actually plant 50 feet across multiple varieties. This gives me 30 to 40 pounds of dried beans. Combined with the summer-planted dried beans, I'm harvesting 60 to 80 pounds of dried beans total. This is serious protein and carbohydrates that stores indefinitely. The winter squash planted in late May is harvested in September and October. 200 to 300 pounds of butternut, acorn, delitica, and spaghetti squash is cured and moved into storage. This alone represents about 300,000 calories, nearly half a person's annual calorie needs. Fall is also when you're harvesting the sweet potato bed. 80 to 120 pounds of sweet potatoes are dug, cured, and stored. Sweet potatoes are the most calorie-dense crop per square foot, providing about 500 calories per pound. This harvest represents about 50 to 60,000 calories. The Jerusalem artichokes planted as perennials are ready for harvest. Jerusalem artichokes, also called sunchokes, are tubers that produce prolifically with zero maintenance. One small planting expands and produces year after year. I harvest about 40 pounds of Jerusalem artichokes in November. They can stay in the ground all winter and be dug as needed or stored in damp sand. Leeks planted in spring are mature and ready in fall. Leeks are incredibly cold-hardy and can be harvested all winter from frozen ground. 25 leek plants provide essential onion flavor throughout winter when stored onions are running low. By November, the root cellar or cool storage areas are packed. Potatoes, onions, garlic, winter squash, sweet potatoes, carrots, beets, cabbage, Jerusalem artichokes, and dried beans are stored. The freezer is full of preserved summer crops. You have enough food to last until spring if properly managed. Section number 5. Winter crops and storage, December through February. Winter is when most people think food production is impossible. They're wrong. Winter has two components: continuing to harvest fresh, cold-hardy crops with protection and managing stored food. The combination provides complete nutrition through the coldest months. The winter harvesting begins with ultra-cold hardy greens. Kale, spinach, and certain lettuces can be harvested all winter with minimal protection. I use low tunnels made from wire hoops and row cover fabric or plastic sheeting. This adds 10 to 20 degrees of protection and keeps plants actively growing even when outdoor temperatures are in the teens or 20s. A 4 by 8 bed of kale under a low tunnel produces about 2 to 3 pounds of greens per week throughout winter. I harvest the lower leaves continuously and the plants keep producing from the top. This provides fresh greens for salads and cooking when fresh vegetables are most valuable. Spinach under row cover continues growing slowly throughout winter in my Zone 6 climate. Growth stops when temperatures drop below 15 degrees for extended periods, but the plants don't die. They resume growth during any warm spells, and they're always harvestable. A 4 by 8 bed of winter spinach yields about 1 to 2 pounds per week from December through February. Mach, also called corn salad, is the most cold-hardy salad green. It tolerates temperatures down to 5 degrees and grows actively all winter under cover. I plant mach in September and harvest it from November through March. It has a mild, nutty flavor and it's loaded with nutrients. 2 square feet of mach provides enough for small daily salads.
Leeks remain in the garden all winter and are dug as needed. Even when the ground is frozen, you can dig leeks. They're essential for winter soups and stews. Carrots can also overwinter in the ground under heavy mulch. I leave about half my fall carrot crop in the ground under 12 inches of straw mulch. They're harvestable throughout winter by pulling back the mulch and digging.
Winter storage management is critical. The root cellar or cool storage area maintains temperatures between 32 and 40 degrees with high humidity. This is ideal for storing potatoes, carrots, beets, cabbage, and winter squash. I check stored crops weekly, removing any that show signs of rot to prevent spread. Potatoes stored properly last from July harvest through March. 150 to 250 pounds provides about 2 to 3 pounds per day for a family of 4. That's a potato dish at dinner every night. Winter squash lasts from September through March if stored properly. Start with the varieties that store less well, like acorn squash in September and October, saving butternut and other long keepers for January through March. Onions and garlic stored in cool, dry, dark conditions last from July harvest through April or May. 50 pounds of onions and 40 pounds of garlic provides about a quarter to half-pound gaily, sufficient for all cooking needs. Sweet potatoes cured and stored at 55 to 60 degrees last from October through April. They actually get sweeter in storage as starches convert to sugars. 80 to 120 pounds provides 2 to 3 sweet potato meals per week all winter. Dried beans stored in airtight containers last indefinitely. 60 to 80 pounds of various dried beans provides protein from multiple bean-based meals weekly. A pound of dried beans cooked provides 3 to 4 servings, so this is about 180 to 240 servings. The freezer is managed carefully through winter. Summer preserved tomato sauce, pesto, roasted peppers, blanched beans, and shredded zucchini are rotated through meals. We eat 1 to 2 preserved summer meals weekly, making that summer abundance last all winter. Winter meals at my house look like this: baked potatoes or sweet potatoes with frozen summer vegetables and herbs, bean soups with dried beans, stored onions and carrots and frozen tomatoes, roasted winter squash, fresh winter salads with kale, spinach, and mâché from the protected beds, pasta with frozen pesto. Everything except pasta and occasional grains comes from the garden. By late February, stored food is diminishing but not gone. Potatoes are usually running low. Winter squash is finishing, but spring crops are about to begin. The survival garden is designed so that as winter storage depletes, spring production begins. There's no gap. Section number 6. The complete 365-day survival garden in concrete numbers. Let me break down the complete 365-day survival garden in concrete numbers so you understand exactly what's required and what it produces. This is the truth that makes food independence real, not a fantasy. Garden size: approximately 2,500 square feet of intensive growing space. This is a garden roughly 40 by 60 feet, though the shape doesn't matter. This includes permanent perennial beds for asparagus, rhubarb, and herbs, plus rotating annual beds for everything else. Planting schedule: something is planted every single week from March through September. This is 30 weeks of continuous planting. Most plantings are succession plantings of the same crops to ensure continuous harvest. Total crop varieties grown: approximately 40 different crops and varieties. This provides dietary diversity and nutritional completeness. You're not eating the same thing every day. Calorie production breakdown by crop category. Potatoes, 150 to 250 pounds, provides approximately 115,000 to 190,000 calories. Sweet potatoes, 80 to 120 pounds, provide 60,000 to 90,000 calories. Winter squash, 200 to 300 pounds provides 40,000 to 60,000 calories. Dried beans, 60 to 80 pounds, provides approximately 160,000 to 215,000 calories. Onions, garlic, and other aromatics, 90 to 120 pounds, provides about 15,000 to 20,000 calories. Tomatoes, fresh and preserved, 400 to 600 pounds, provides approximately 70,000 to 105,000 calories. Other summer vegetables, fruits, and greens, 300 to 500 pounds, provides approximately 60,000 to 100,000 calories. Total annual production, 900 to 1,400 pounds of food, providing 520,000 to 780,000 calories. This is 70 to 100% of caloric needs for one adult, or 40 to 60% for a family of 4. The remaining calories come from grains, dairy, and meat that you may still purchase or produce separately. Labor requirements, approximately 10 to 15 hours per week averaged across the year. Spring and summer require more time, 15 to 20 hours weekly during peak planting and harvesting. Fall and winter require less, 5 to 10 hours weekly for harvesting, preservation, and maintenance. Initial setup costs, approximately $500 to $1,000 for permanent infrastructure, including raised beds or bed preparation, trellises, load tunnels, row cover fabric, tools, and seeds. This is a one-time investment that lasts years. Ongoing annual costs, approximately $100 to $200 for seeds, soil amendments, and replacement materials. This is minimal compared to grocery bills. Grocery bill reduction, 70 to 85% reduction in vegetables, fruits, and beans purchases. The remaining 15 to 30% of grocery budget goes to grains, dairy, meat, and specialty items you don't produce. Financial break-even, typically achieved in the first year. The initial investment is recovered through reduced grocery spending within 12 to 18 months. Every year after that is pure savings. The preserved food breakdown is critical to understand. By preserving summer abundance, you're eating summer food all winter. My preservation totals from last year: 40 quarts canned tomato sauce, 15 pints salsa, 15 quarts canned whole tomatoes, 20 pints pickles and pickled peppers, 30 portions frozen pesto, 40 pounds blanched and frozen zucchini, 15 pounds roasted and frozen peppers. This preserved food supplements the fresh winter harvests and stored crops, ensuring variety and complete nutrition year-round. The most important number, 0 days per year buying vegetables. From March through November, you're harvesting fresh food daily. From December through February, you're harvesting winter greens and eating stored crops. There's no gap. There's no need to buy vegetables. Section number 7. The mindset shift and getting started. The final piece that makes the 365-day survival garden work isn't about crops or schedules, it's about mindset. You have to stop thinking like a recreational gardener and start thinking like a farmer, even on a small scale. This means viewing your garden as a food production system, not a hobby. The mindset shift includes accepting that your garden won't look pretty. Food production gardens are utilitarian. Succession plantings mean you have crops at all stages. Some beds are being harvested, others are being planted, others are growing. It looks like a working farm, not a magazine photo. You have to be okay with that. You also have to accept eating seasonally. Yes, you'll have tomatoes in winter, but they'll be preserved sauce, not fresh sliced tomatoes. You eat fresh tomatoes in summer. In winter, you eat fresh greens and stored roots. This is how humans ate for thousands of years before global supply chains. It's healthier and more sustainable. Preservation is non-negotiable. You cannot achieve year-round food independence without preserving summer abundance. This means investing time in July, August, and September to can, freeze, and cure food. A few hours of preservation work provides meals for months.
The biggest mindset shift is prioritizing calorie crops over novelty vegetables. Grow fewer types of tomatoes and more winter squash. Skip the exotic heirlooms and grow reliable storage onions. Choose varieties based on productivity and storability, not Instagram appeal. Getting started with this system doesn't mean implementing everything in year one. In fact, trying to do it all immediately leads to overwhelm and failure. Here's the realistic startup plan. Year 1, focus on summer production and basic storage crops. Grow tomatoes, peppers, cucumbers, squash, and beans in summer. Plant potatoes, onions, and garlic for storage. Learn preservation by canning tomato sauce and making pickles. Get comfortable with the workload. Year 2, add succession planting and extend seasons. Start planting greens and roots every 2 weeks. Install simple season extension like row covers for fall and winter crops. Expand storage crop plantings. Year 3, implement the complete 365-day plan. Add spring and fall brassicas, establish perennials, plant winter-hardy greens under protection, dial in your preservation quantities. The most common question is what to start with if you can plant one thing, and the answer is potatoes. 100 row feet of potatoes is achievable in a small space, requires minimal maintenance, and produces 150 to 250 pounds of storable calories. This single crop makes the biggest impact on food independence. The second priority is winter squash. 20 plants producing 200 to 300 pounds of squash that stores for 6 months is transformative. These 2 crops alone, potatoes and winter squash, provide about 200,000 to 300,000 calories, almost half your annual needs. Third priority is tomatoes for preservation. 40 plants producing 400 to 600 pounds allows you to preserve enough tomato sauce, salsa, and canned tomatoes to eliminate buying these for a year. With these 3 crops dialed in, you have the foundation. Then you add greens, roots, beans, and season extension year by year. The tools you actually need are minimal: a spade, a hoe, a rake, pruning shears, and a watering system. For preservation, you need a pressure canner for tomatoes, a freezer, and storage space. The fancy tools and gadgets are unnecessary. This is about production, not equipment. You now have the exact roadmap to food independence. This isn't theoretical. This is the system feeding my family right now. We haven't bought vegetables in 11 months. We've cut our grocery bill by 70%, and we're eating the healthiest, freshest food of our lives. This isn't easy. It's work, but it's achievable work that anyone with garden space and commitment can do. You're trading grocery store dependence for garden productivity. You're trading money for time and skill. You're building real food security. Which season are you starting with? Already growing food year-round? Drop a comment and tell me what crops anchor your system. Share what country or zone you're in. If this video showed you what's possible, smash that like button and subscribe to Garden Solace. We're exposing more food independence strategies. Hit the bell for the next video where I show you the exact preservation techniques that make summer food last all winter. Thanks for watching. Now go plant your survival garden and stop being dependent on the grocery system.